And welcome to another edition of Hoops Hitting Gems podcast. I'm your host, David Jones. Want to thank everybody as normal is coming on to the show and joining us. You guys have been with me for 107 episodes. Thank you guys so much. We're almost at year number 5 come November. I can't appreciate you all. You guys have been so supportive, and this platform has grown so much in these past almost 5 years. And tonight is no different. We have a really good show in store. We want to start off with our first guest. I'm so happy to have her on. We have Coach Tisa England from Catawba Valley Community College in North Carolina. How you doing today?
I am well. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I wanted to bring you on because, I'm a big fan of schools of every level, and junior college is no different. There's opportunity, and I've done my research on you guys, and you guys do a good job with what you do with your program, as well as your placement rate on to the next level with the 4-year university. So tell us some more about Catawba Valley Community College in North Carolina.
Hey, okay. We're located in Hickory, North Carolina, and we've got about 5,000 students here at CVCC. Our ratio's between 15 to 1. We have a lot of great programs, over 50 programs that the students can choose from. Going into probably one of our most important one is nursing. So we have a nursing program where we're placing kids into the nursing career. It's just so much. It's just a possibility where dreams can become reality. And I love it because it's a hands-on. We touch the kids. We meet them right where they at. And it's important. It's a great school to be.
I love that. And you said, the thing I like what you just said the most, it's an opportunity. Yes. And, in these days and times with things, unfortunately with some schools closing and, some schools doing away with athletics, this opportunities are becoming slim, and you have to be able to make the most of whatever opportunity you get. And, with Catawba Valley being that 2-year, tell us what region Catawba Valley's in.
We're in Region 10, NJCAA Region 10. It's a great region, competitive region. I think all of our schools are great schools, and we compete. And that's what I love about Region 10. We're very competitive.
Okay, and you said you're in North Carolina, and so Region 10, and Region 10 is a pretty good conference because they have some really good schools. That what I'm big on, don't get me wrong, I know you're competitive like me, and everybody wants to win. But to me, one of the most important things between graduation rate and moving on to those 4-year universities, tell us about your placement rate from Catawba Valley to 4-year schools. And I say that because I don't want you to think, everybody has to go Power 5. And you know that as well as I do. It's the opportunities going to the NAIAs, the NCCAAs, the D2s, the D3s. I mean, you're in CIAA country as well as SIAC country as well.
Absolutely. My graduation, I take pride in that. I tell players when they come here, you are a student athlete, and we take pride in that. And so my graduation rate is 100%. Sophomores are 100%, getting them to the next level, 90%. And I say 90% because we do have student athletes that go into the armed forces. And so and they're doing extremely well. I produced 5 All-Americans. And one of my first All-Americans, she's in the Army, and as a lieutenant, she's doing very well. Once she graduated from me, she went to a 4-year school and graduated from there, and then went into the armed service. So we have players that go into the work field, right into the work field. So it's just I love it because like I said, I meet players where they at and try to make sure that they get the understanding that it's bigger than basketball. The ball's going to stop. And so you got to have education, which goes beyond. So you got to have that education that no one can take away from you. And so we take pride in that. I'm big. Everybody knows Coach England. They know that she's big on academics. And I mean, that's one of my sayings. If you were dumb in high school, you're gonna be smart in college. If you're smart in high school, you're gonna be a genius here. So we, like I said, we take pride in that whatsoever.
I like that. Let me ask this as well, because this is important to me. Everybody's not, as they say, an impact player. And some kids they need that development before they can take off and go to the next level. How big are you on development?
Well, be honest, we're definitely a development team. If you look at the type of players that come in, there are kids that come in that could make it academically at the next level, but they needed the more work on their game to elevate their game, and then vice versa. So JUCO has always been known for that you're not good in academics, but they're good at athletics. That's not the case. That's not the case. We have a mixed multitude, and so player development is important on our level, because 4-year schools are dependent on us to get them ready, to get them to understand basketball terminology, not only understanding it but applying it, with your different skill sets. So they're dependent on us to put that impact in these young ladies' lives. And so that's what we do. We run our program like a 4-year program. So I'll be honest with you, we run like a 4-year program. My kids they have experience with study hall. They have experience with 5 a.m. Workouts. They have experience with ice baths. So we hit every area. We making sure that the individual workouts. So it's really kind of like a job. I tell them that you're not coming here to live like MTV Cribs. You're not coming here to start a family and, just to get away from home. You're coming here for only 2 reasons, and that is to get an education and play the sport that you say that you love. And so that's why they're here, to make sure. And those who come in and buy in and do what we ask them to do, they see how the growth of it and elevation of how they're doing. They can make it at the next level. They can succeed not only academically, but athletic at the next level, because they got that foundation here at CVCC.
Let me ask this, and I'm glad you brought that up. What's it like a typical day once they get there for the student athlete? And, you just said they got 5 a.m. and they're going to have study hall, so they're going to practice early. Then they're going to have classes, and then from there, how does it go from there? What does the day look like after their practice?
A typical day here at CVCC, especially during preseason, we call it preseason. We only have about 8 weeks to get them ready before we start our first scrimmage, our first game. So they're already asking for a miracle, and we only have 8 hours to work with them for the week. So that's, that's tough. So we get them in and we get them on their first week. They come here. We want to make sure that they got their classes situated. It's all about academics, making sure that everybody's in the proper class, making sure that they know where they're going, just getting accustomed to college life. And then we go right into our preseason, which was here at 5 a.m. workouts. They got it's called their strength and conditioning, where they're running, they're lifting weights. And then they get an opportunity to take a shower, and then from breakfast to study hall. Study hall is at 7 a.m. and then they go right into their classes. And so we have a set schedule where we kind of set them up to say, okay, you might have a class from 8 to 8:50, 9 to 9:50. Then at 10 o'clock, you're meeting myself or my assistant, Nikiana McCaskill, to work on your individual weakness, which might be footwork. It might be stick backs, mic and drill. It could be any kind of thing, whatever their weakness is, we're working on that. And then throughout the day, they have more study hall time, because I tell them all the time, if you're taking work home, you're not using your time wisely here at school. And so then we have an afternoon session where we're doing drills and skills. And that's normally at 3 o'clock, but we ask the kids to be back at 2 o'clock so they can get their stretching, to go to the training room. So all those things, that's important to make sure that we build a routine for them. So by the time the first game start, they understand getting up early, the early bird. That's what we're going to do. Make sure we're getting up early, focusing, locking in on academics as well as athletics. So it has worked for this program, and I've seen greatness come through this program. I've seen kids succeed in every area, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the work that they not only put in, but also my assistant, Nikiana McCaskill. She puts in a lot of work.
Okay, I like that. But let me ask this, and this is important as well because I want people to understand this. That aren't familiar with the program. What type of player are you looking for, CVCC? In your opinion, what's a CVCC type player?
We're looking for coachable players that we can coach, that we can teach. Feel like they don't know everything. If you know everything, then why are you here? And so you're always growing. To live is to grow, and to grow is to change. So you got to make sure that you're growing, you're learning. And so we want kids that's willing to buy into our system, which is to listen, to learn, to get better. We're transition team. We're a team that we got to play offense as well as defense. Defense is what really wins the game. So we got to get kids that's locked in, and they want to get to the next level. They want to compete. We want players that want to have that desire and want to get to the next level.
Okay, I like that. And so how do you go out? So what's your recruiting style? Are you out at AAU events? What's your style of recruiting? Let me ask that.
Well, we recruit all over. We recruit in-state as well as out-of-state. We go to unsigned events. We go to some AAU. We don't do all AAU. And a lot of it's word by mouth. 4-year schools understand our program. We sent, like I said, we sending kids Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, and so we sending kids all over so they understand what my program's all about. And so a lot of times 4-year schools are calling me, asking me, hey, have you heard about this kid? Can you get this kid in? Because of the structure that we have here at CVCC.
So, and I'm glad you said that. So that means sometimes you take kids that are drop downs from 4-year universities as well.
Absolutely. And I don't see that as negative. I see that it's just that now they have a different opportunity, and then they can come in and let other kids know what it's really like out there, what it's really like. And, we tell kids all the time that, you're just as good as anybody. You can be the best that you can be. It's not just a certain All-Americans. We ask those questions when they come here. What do you want to do in life? What do you want to be? So that we'll go from there. So, but we do take transfers. Matter of fact, I'm looking for some experienced players now. Love transfer players. The kids that understand the game and want to understand it even more.
And that leads into this question. With JUCO D2, you don't cover full academic rides, so it's kind of a mixture between Pell, some academic money, and then you do have some money to give as well. Is that correct?
Correct. We have athletic scholarship that we have, and then we also have just regular scholarship money. Our school in state, it's only $27,00 a year. That's only $2,700 a year. So if the player qualify for a full FAFSA, they're already going to school for free. And we still offer athletic scholarships so they can be able to live and make it. And then out of state, our tuition is less than $10,000, little about $9,000, little over $9,000. So we're very cost efficient. We're really what the kids get here at CVCC. There's not a price tag for it. So
okay, yeah, because basically what you just said, if you're out of state and if you're full Pell, you're almost covered almost.
Exactly. And so that's what I tell players all the time, especially your first year, your first year in school, go where you want it, go where you value. And then also look at the prices, the costs, because you got kids coming out of school already, their freshman year on $30,000 and $40,000. That's a lot of money. And so we take pride in how we're cost efficient and with our schools.
Absolutely. I love that right there because, I don't care whether it's JUCO or 4 years, the goal of this is getting this to the free, basically, as one of my good friends of the show, Corey Black, would say, we love that D free.
Yes.
But, it's one of those things where we don't want people going into extreme debt for this as well, because sometimes that deters kids, because sometimes there's schools that be like, hey, we really like you, this, that, and the third, but then they turn around and say, oh, by the way, we know this is JUCO, you're still gonna have to pay $20,000 and there's a lot of families that can't afford that. So sometimes the dream is kind of deterred sometimes, because they have this where they want to come, but when the money situation's tight, and if Pell or sometimes they don't have the 3.0 plus where they can get that academic money. Now it's, how do you become creative to go for as least as possible? Well, let me ask that, because I'm just brainstorming while I'm thinking about it. Do you guys have work study as well?
We do. We offer work study. We offer work study. I'm big on educating my players, about scholarship money. Like I've been here 12 years, and I've never had a student athlete, women's basketball player, get a loan, in-state or out-of-state.
Wow.
And I produce in-state, out-of-state kids. So I've never had them get a loan, because I'll get them to understand, and this is where it's at. You got athletic scholarship, you got other scholarships that we have, CVCC Foundation, outside scholarships. You make sure that you put that in there and get that time. Your parents have made sacrifices, give back to them, that you don't have to get a loan. And it's worked for us, and I love it. I take pride in that. I work hard, just having a rapport with with players, coaches, the community, so the community understand that we're about educating our student athletes.
Now the fun part.
Okay.
What type of style do you like to play there at CVCC?
A transition. I like getting up and down the court. I'm just a type of player. That's how I played. I love the game. Having fun. When you getting those layups, when you making individual moves, team moves. I like transition. But reality is that now a lot of kids, they going into zone, not moving their feet, and so that defensive skill set of teaching them principles is so important. Even at elementary, middle school, high school, they got to understand the principles of the game, the foundation of the game. And I think that's where a lot of people are losing it. They're just letting them play, just do whatever, and that's not how it is on collegiate level, because we have a shot clock, 30 seconds. So about time you get past half court, you got to be past half court within 10 seconds, and then you got to run the play. So you got to be able to, get that defensive stop, and you got to be able to play the man-to-man, and you got to be able to play zone.
I like that. So, you just brought up a good one there. So defensively, do you prefer zone or man?
It depends on the competition. I'll be honest with you. We're, like I said, we're very competitive. And we have a lot of great student athletes in our Region 10 that could be at the next level. And so it all depends on the competition. You got to look and see. But I like both. And it kind of man-to-man makes you be held accountable. Like can you move your feet? Can you be able to deny? Can you guard? Can you guard? And then you got the zone where that's where your teammates come in. That's where you're talking and asking them for help. You're having that sisterhood and things like that. So I like both. It depends on the competition, where who we playing. You got to be able to play both, especially in this generation, this era.
I like that, boy. And with you being a defensive type of coach, let me ask this: how important is it for these kids to come to your program and know the defensive shell drill? I ask that to everybody.
Absolutely, very important. If not, the bench will be their best friend. I'm gonna be honest. You gotta be able to play defense. You gotta be able to move your feet. You gotta be able to talk. You gotta understand it. That's why I said we want kids that's coachable, teachable, because they might not have learned that in school.
Yes.
So be willing, be open-minded, optimistic, to be able to learn and listen to what the coach has to say, and just go with it. Trust the process. It's not gonna fall out of the sky on top of your head, and you're gonna be mysteriously be this a great player. You got to put the work in. You just have to put the work in. And so that's where we're looking for kids who really want to put the work in and just do what we asked them to do.
And I want to pick your brain on this one. And there's no right or wrong answer to this because every coach has their different belief on this. For the kids that you're developing, and JUCO has this option, and I don't know if you use it or not. Would you be up for redshirting a kid if they need some more work?
Well, because JUCO is a 2-year school, it's the possibility of in and out so quickly. I'm straightforward with the player right off the bat. This is where you're at, and I put the best on the court. It's not about favoritism to me. Redshirting, it can go either way, like especially if it's an injury, things like that. Or just if you have, too many players, or you just got to make them compete. You got to compete in life because that's how it is, in the workforce. You don't work, you don't get paid. So, you just got to be able to just, relay all of that realistically with the kids. Redshirting, I'm not, I don't like I say I don't believe in it. It all depends on the situation.
Okay. And that's fine. And I'm glad you said that because I don't want you to give me a political answer. I'm glad you did say that because some coaches believe in it, some don't. Yeah. Some are saying, hey, this is what it is, basically. And I think what you just said, or comparing that to life, to say, hey, listen, this is where you're at. And what people need to understand as well, a lot of times you said you're going to put the best players on the court. I definitely understand that. A lot of times those best players are your experienced ones that know the system. So a lot of times, unless you're special, a lot of times freshmen are adjusting from high school to college anyways. Now, as the season goes on, sure, they may see more minutes, but you know this as well. That first month to 2 months, let's take away getting them in shape and what they expect for college. But the game is faster, it's stronger. So it's taking time for those, freshmen to adjust. So the sophomores already know what's coming a lot of times. So they're going to play for the most part. And you see it a lot of times, but don't get me wrong. There's some really special freshmen that come in, pick up, and like you said, if they're ready, they're ready. But I see in JUCO a lot, the freshman year is, hey, you're going to learn. This is what it is. You may, by the time December, January come, we get the conference. Okay, you picked up what the system is, what the expectations are, and now I've seen you put in the work and you're ready. And it may be before that. Some kids are gifted. They come in and they can play from day one. So you're going to have those special kids as well, but in essence, a lot of those kids, it's going to take a moment. I don't want to gauge it whether it's going to be 2 months or 3 months for those freshmen to adjust to your system. And then some of them take off. Some of them understand, hey, I have to work. Some of them, this may not be for them as well.
Right. It's a transition. I mean, that's why I tell parents all the time, just trust the coaches. Kids going to call back, want to quit. They're going to call back and they're going to tell their side of the story, things like that. But you got to make sure that they stick with it. And I always tell my players, a true Lady Red Hawk never gives up. That's what we teach them. We teach them about accountability, teach them fight through adversity because that's life. Every day the good Lord wakes us up. We don't know what's going to hit us. If something comes up, we're just going to lay down and say, oh, my woe unto me. No, you got to learn how to fight through adversity. And so as freshmen, that transition, that's why you have that player-coach relationship. You communicating with them, you talking to them, you letting them know, and you just keeping it real with them. And some kids can handle it, some kids can't. But I tell them from the beginning, I'm putting the best on the court. I need people who, it's like we're going into war. I can't take people out there who's going to back down every time something come up. You got to have strong warriors. So it's challenging for freshmen. That transition period, it goes all the way from, and it's not only on the court but off the court. They're not used to having a set schedule. They're not used to taking accountability. It's a lot that goes with it. So I said, if you can make it past Christmas, you're good. You're good. So, but that is true. A lot of players that go to 4-year schools and freshmen. That's why you find them, a lot of them say, "Oh, I fell out of love with basketball." No, you just didn't adapt well to the transition of what was going on. Used to being the best player. Now everybody's good. So it's a lot that goes into that.
I like that. That's a great analogy right there, because like that's why I said it's a shock to the system for freshmen a lot of time. What you just said, I mean, I used to have a coach and he used to line all the kids up, and those freshmen would come in and he'd have them introduce themselves, and then he would just go down the line and say, what were your accolades in high school? And everybody would almost verbatim say, "Oh, I was all section, all conference, all state. I was this, that, and the other." By the time you get to that 6th or 7th freshman, you're starting to see, oh, he was the same thing I was. He was the same thing I was. And then he finished it off and would say, "You all are the same, and that means nothing here now. Your mom can't save you. Your dad can't save you. You are here now. What you did in the past means absolutely nothing. It's what you do from this point forward. Some of you are going to succeed. Some of you are going to fail." Like you said, and he said, it's how you handle adversity from there. And I thought that was one of the most powerful things he could say, because, those kids will look at each other and some of them will be bewildered, like, "Oh, this guy's just as good as I am. This guy's just as good as I am." So someone will be like, "Oh, he has more accolades than me." And sometimes you don't understand that accolades don't always mean you're a better basketball player. I mean, it just depends. In that region, he excelled. I mean, there's a number of variables that play into that. So many kids look at, "Oh, he was this, he was that, he was this." And then come to find out, you might be better than him.
That's right. That's right. You're absolutely right.
I just had to get on my horse on that one, because, so, and parents as well. Parents always look at it like, "Oh, well," and this is one of the big things, and this leads to the next question. Everybody wants to be a scorer. And when everybody wanting to be a scorer, parents will say, "Oh, well, my baby's not getting the ball to shoot, and my baby's not this, my baby's not that." You have to understand, you're not going to have a team full of 20-point scorers. That's just not the case. I like to say this, and to your point, I like to say, how can you add value to the team? And when you say can you add value, people don't understand that's how a lot of these kids end up going to 4-year schools, because they can do something outside of score. Because just because you can score doesn't mean you're recruitable. You might be horrific defensively. You might be a bad teammate. You might whine and complain when things aren't going your way. And I see so many coaches mark those kids off. And you might be talented scoring, but that's all you can do. You're a one-trick pony. And when you get to the 4-year schools, a good portion of the time, that level of intensity goes up even more, and those players are even better. So if you're doing all that now, you're not going to survive at that D2, D1, NAI, D3, because there's some really good D3 programs. I had a good D3 coach on 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, they're not playing for you like that." And so, I just always like to talk about that. But let me ask you this, and this is one of the questions as we, start to wind this up. Why CVCC over other Region 10 JUCOs or other JUCOs just in general? Why CVCC?
We're a place give opportunity, possibilities where possibilities become reality and become your dreams. We care about you as a person. We care about you being a productive student athlete. We're different, and we're different in a good way. I love it. Choose CVCC because we're the best. We're the best in every area.
I like that. And, I just want to commend you. That 100% graduation rate, that's huge right there. Yes, I'm big on basketball, but I'm big on academics. And then now we're playing the game of life.
That's
right. And
with
us playing the game of life, that's even more. So my hat's off to you. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. For the people that don't know how to get in contact with you, and I always like to do this as well, how can they reach out to you? Do you have social media? Do you want them to email you, call you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Social media, we on Twitter, Facebook. We're on all social media, but they can also contact me through my email, tengland@cbcc.edu. They can contact the school, Catawba Valley Community College. So, in every area aspect that they can contact me.
Okay, sounds good. And what's the social media handle on Twitter?
Tisha12, Tisha12.
Okay.
And so then you got Facebook. So it's all over Catawba Valley Community College. Just look up Catawba Valley Community College.
Okay. Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you coming on. And, you're only maybe 3 hours from me. So with you being 3 hours from me, I cover some of the AAC games. So I cover UNC Charlotte. So you're not far from Charlotte at all. So okay. That's a 3 hour ride from me. So I'd love to get up there and catch a game while I'm in Charlotte.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Doors are open anytime.
Thank you so much. Well,
thank you for having me.
Anytime. And I like to say this in ending. Once you come on this show, you're considered family now. This is like family reunion. So this won't be your last time coming on, okay?
Okay, awesome. I appreciate it. Much success and a job well done.
Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, you take care. Listen, so for you folks that aren't familiar, so JUCO has JUCO D1, JUCO D2, JUCO D3, JUCO Independent, and there are really good players on every level. I like to stress that because I have some coaches sometimes that don't even know about JUCO D3, JUCO Independent, and barely touch JUCO D2. Don't get me wrong, I love JUCO D1 just like anybody else. These JUCO levels are just like NCCA levels. You have D1, D2, D3. You have some really good kids at all of those levels. And sometimes these kids are really good, and coach does a really good job at the JUCO D2 level, and she places them at really good four-year schools. So I just wanted to make sure I brought her on so people understand that there are options on every level, JUCO as well. Man, our next guest, I'm glad to have him on. Just got the new job. I'm happy for the brother. I mean, boy, I can't wait to see what he does at this school here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Coach Dodie Duncan. How you doing today?
I am doing well, sir. I appreciate you having me on today.
Oh man, thank you so much for coming on. Hey man, listen. First of all, congratulations for being the new head coach at Lewis University. So we're just going to jump right into it, man. Tell us about Lewis University for the people that don't know about it.
No, Lewis University, it's an amazing institution. It's a private institution where I tell people you can get an intimate education, a world-class experience, and a high-quality degree. We're located right outside of Chicago in Romeoville, Illinois, but very high-level Division II basketball.
Okay. And forgive me, it's Dunson, not Duncan. Excuse me, it's Dunson's. Forgive me for that.
No, it's okay.
Now, let me ask this. Like you said, I'm a Midwest fan when it comes to basketball because it's a different brand of basketball. One of our good friends, coach from North Texas, Coach Jennings, we talk about it, that Kentucky, that Indiana, that Illinois type of basketball. It's a team brand of basketball where those guys have a really good skill set, but it's also, especially in Illinois, it's a physical brand of basketball as well. And sometimes people don't, they're not fond of that type of basketball. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. I will say the Midwest is different from the South region or the West Coast. I would say the Midwest is more of a league where people are very physical, you diving on the floor, very fundamental, making the extra pass, getting downhill off the dribble. So, and I played myself, I started off at Iowa State University, finished my career at Bradley University, being a Midwest guy. Mm-hmm. Just scrappy basketball.
I like that. So now that you're at Lewis, tell us about the school. So, it's a D2 and people aren't familiar with it. So that's why I wanted to bring you on. So people that don't know about Lewis University, tell us about the school first before we start getting into, your expectations and stuff like that.
No, for sure. Like Lewis University, being in the GOVC, it's been a great, from the basketball side, a great brand of tradition. You talk about the last coach that was here last year had a very good season. They were 26-4, 19-1 in conference play, took the team to the NCAA tournament, won the regular season tournament. And then you look at over the last 5 coaches, they've all platformed to go to the Division I level. And so, like I said, it's just been a very good brand of basketball. But for myself, it's a great opportunity to get my first head coaching job in a place where it's near home.
Okay.
But I'm just super, super excited about this.
Okay. Now, tell us about the school. What type of school is Lewis University? What type of majors do they offer? Tell us about that.
We offer a lot of tons of majors, all over backgrounds. We're a Catholic school that has one of the top aviations in the country. You talk about the business side, the MBA. You talk about particularly within education, it has all over 100 academic programs, and so it's a place where it's not just one area. You can go on a brand of all different fields.
Okay, and you mentioned the conference that it's in, and you talked about some of the majors as well. Now that you're there, what's going to be your vision? Because this is your first year, at the program. Are you going to practice in the morning? Or are you practicing in the evening? What's your style?
I would say, the biggest thing for me, I want to be able, like my team pillars, to create discipline. So the first thing is I love to have early practices. So it's just going to allow our kids to be very disciplined, getting up in the morning, setting a routine, being able to do what we're set out to do. And so like right now, when I got the job about a month ago, I was able to meet the team and I had 2 practices. And so I kind of laid it out there to them saying that, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what's set out. All I asked them to do is give the best effort possible. For me, I always say, this is a quote I've always lived by. How you do anything is how you do everything. So I'm not always looking for every single made shot. I'm not saying that you're going to not turn the ball over, but if you give your best in everything you do and approach it with energy and attitude, with great attitude and energy, hey, we're going to have a great practice that leads to stacking days to will allow us to be competitive every single day.
I like that. And, that's one of those things, like you're building that mentality that you want into your players. So you're building that culture per se, with that type of mentality. It's just like Coach England that was on earlier. You all know those early practices. Woo, those teenagers, they gonna be like, oh man, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Come on, Coach, stall me out. But you're not trying to hear that.
No. And I think when you establish a culture, you want to create a standard. And so, being disciplined, being committed, holding each other accountable. So like if they have a roommate, hey, we got to be in this gym by 6 o'clock, so that's just going to create a team bond atmosphere, but also we're going to hold each other accountable to say what we're going to do.
I like that. I really do. Now that you're there, I mean, you got to get things rolling. Like, yes, you're recruiting now, but do you plan to be out this summer on the circuit? What's your style? I mean, do you just take referrals? How do you do it from the D2 level?
Hey, I will say this. I look at everything, sometimes circuit, sometimes non-circuit. For me, it's just finding the best fit kid. And for me, it's just finding kids that, I look in this area of recruiting, are they high character? It's not just about basketball.
Yeah.
We talk about, are they tough? We talk about Midwest kids. And I think there's kids anywhere that you can find that's tough. Are they winners? Do they have a high IQ? Do they create production? For me, we talk about the difference between talent and talented is the ED is the extra dimension. I just don't want to score. I want a person that can pass the ball. I want to be able to person that can move without the ball. So I'm looking for all of the areas of the holistic of the game, just not one area.
Now, and I'm glad you just said that. So with that being said, what you just explained to me, you're looking for a kid with IQ as well. And with that IQ, because when you're on this level, and I like to stress this because I broadcast D2 games, a lot of times every coach in the conference pretty much knows what you're going to do. So with that being said, you have to be able to have option 1, option 2, option 3, and in some instances, option 4 and 5 as well, because they're going to take away your bread and butter for the most part. And with us having synergy and everything else now, synergy will break it down. They're really good at this. They're really good at that. So it comes down to, okay, kids, they're going to expect us to do what we do well. It's when they take this away, what are we going to do once they take it away that they're going to give us that we're going to take to make us successful?
Absolutely. So you talk about, just utilizing your players to the best of their ability. So if you have a player that's their leading scorer, they're going to probably be the marquee player. Mm-hmm. Let's use this play, since they know the play's coming. We're going to use our star player as a decoy to run it off another person. And so just being able to figure those tidbits, those things that can help create advantages for us, as if they take the first option away, well, we have the second, third option.
Exactly. So what we're talking right now, and wow, you taking me there right now, that means a whole bunch of film work.
Yes.
And in retrospect, you're taking away what they're doing as well, because when you watch this film, you're telling your kids, hey, this is what they do extremely well. We need to stop this, or they're going to be a problem. But in the same sentence, you're going to pick out, hey, they have a very good team. They're good at this, this, and this, but they have a weakness here. This is what we're going to exploit. And sometimes that means the leading scorer, this may not be your night. Second scorer, this may not be your night. This may be somebody who comes off the bench. It may be your night.
Absolutely.
And so, I love that, because in watching that film, you're installing your game plan and saying, okay, this is how we are going to attack this. And how we're going to attack this is we're going to do this, but we've done drills to get ready for this. So we're going to institute this even more this week to say, hey, this is going to be important. So you guys that haven't paid attention to this, you may be sitting next to me because you're not processing fast enough. And when I say not processing fast enough, I tell kids, girls and boys, the faster you process is the faster you will get on the court.
Absolutely. Spot on.
I can't say, hey, I'm just the broadcaster, who am I? Nobody pays me no attention. But watching this game and enjoying it and being able to break it down as I'm talking it as the game goes on, you see, hey, coach is about to. Then sometimes when I'm talking on the broadcast, he's going to do this. You can see, and for them to get back into this game, they need to do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes you're thinking this, like, yeah, we have to do this. And as they say, sometimes it may not be your night, because if that team is hot, it's hard to stop. Man, let me ask this, and it's so important when I ask this. You said you're looking for high character kids. And when I think of character, it's how you respond to adversity when you're down 15, when you're down 20. It's, are you walking back during a timeout like, man, we're getting killed, coach, or is it the bench that's picking them up? It's these type of things that it's the intangibles, I like to say, that are so important that make a complete team. People always like to think of just the 5 starters. It's the bench that's just as important as well. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree. And everybody's got to be engaged, because you never know whose moment's going to be called. So if it's in foul trouble, like, everybody has to play their part, from the starting 5 to the last person on the bench, because you just never know when your number is going to be called. I did want to elaborate on the piece you said about just with players, even from the character piece. When I'm going out recruiting, I'm not just looking at, if I'm looking at a kid, I'm just not looking at when they're playing the tough games. I'm looking at when they're playing teams that are not as great, because if they're beating a team, they're normally putting in the bench, right? Mm-hmm. So how are they a good teammate, even though they're the superstar? How are they still cheering on their teammates as if they were not in the game? So I look at all of those things that come into play from the character standpoint.
And that's big, because, as we get ready for the second half of, travel ball. You got high school live period coming up, and then you have the big July period for AAU. A lot of kids don't realize that they're being watched when they're not on the floor. And when I say that, you're not almost verbatim, everybody says the same thing. Like, yeah, they want to see if you can play, but to the point of character, are you disengaged? Are you, like you said, not supportive? Because, everybody is a good person per se when things are going their way, but when things aren't going their way, if you're in foul trouble, are you the one supporting your backup? Are you the one that is trying to ignite the team during the timeout? If they're battling back, are you the one jumping out and the first one to greet them? Like, let's go, man. Come on, guys, we can do this. All of those things play such a big role. And it's those things as well that determine sometimes levels too. You think so?
I would absolutely agree with you. All of those things that you're saying are factors in being a part of a winning culture. And if they can't do those things offside of the court, it will be hard for me to recruit them no matter how talented they are on the court.
Okay. Now, what type of style can people expect Lewis University to play next year?
Oh, we're going to play fast. We want to play in transition. I'm looking to score. I want to be able to get that ball off the rim. And again, as you recruit players that are not just one position, or I want to play more positionless basketball to where we can get out and score. But at the same time, we want to sit down and lock up defensively. If we can sit down and lock up defensively, I believe offense wins games, but defense wins championships. The more you can cut people's water off, the more you can play offense.
I like that. I like that. I'm going to have to take that one. I like that one. But now, what about when people cut your water off and force you to play half court? How do you handle that?
Absolutely. I think there's things to where with the team chemistry, right? We're going to run probably, if we can't score in the certain things that we want to, we're going to run a little bit more quick hitters, or we're going to run a little bit more continuity sets to where we can find advantages. And so there's always, and it's both sides of the floor. Like, there's going to be weak parts of our game people are going to take advantage of because of him, but we're going to try to take our advantage of what they don't do well. And so it's just picking on those things and just executing.
Let me ask, and man, as you're saying all this, so much is coming to me. The development piece. How big are you on development? Because yes, people like to say, "Oh, if you're going to develop, you develop at JUCO," and then 4 years. The quote unquote saying, which is not true, is 4 years are only looking for impact players. Well, yes, everybody's looking for impact players, but it's also those kids that have that big P on their chest, that potential that you can develop into possibly that all conference, or, you never know, or a vital part of the team. So how big are you when it comes to development?
That is very huge. I'm very big right now. Like, our kids went home with a packet about a couple weeks ago. And so when they went home, I created, when I took the job, an individual game plan of attack for their development. And each single player, I sat down, we watched film on the positives of where we need to work on, whether they're really good at, and this is the area where they need to grow. So, like, I've worked closely with our athletic training. We work closely with our strength and conditioning coach. And so we want to put our kids in position to individually grow, especially from the shooting, their ball handling, their passing, the understanding, just more film. And over the course of these next 8 weeks, while they're home, we're voluntarily, I should say, going through Zoom and watching film, because after me taking over a program as my first time, there's things that they got to still learn my terminology, and I still have to learn them. So I'm learning in a different way with it over Zoom, but at the same time, we're closing the gap on, okay, once you get back here in August, we're going to hit the ground running.
I like that. I really do. And so you're instituting a summer plan that, like you said, is voluntarily that they do on their own. And I want to say this as well. That work you put in voluntarily, you're going to notice come August. And a lot of times those are the kids that end up excelling because they're taking that packet, they're taking it serious. And not to say nobody on that team is not taking it serious, but there's some people that are going to go even further. What you're asking them to do, they may do 2 to 3 times more what you're asking, because they want to be well prepared, because they don't know what your expectation. Well, they know, but they haven't experienced it yet.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's key. You know, the kids that are really hungry and they want to take the next step further. And again, I'm coming back following a coach that had a lot of success. So they all kind of have that championship DNA. Now, some played more than others last year, but I truly believe that they're hungry. If they want to be able to repeat, we have to close the gap on, okay, we have to individually help you all get better in your craft in this area, this area, this area, as I met with them. Now, let's put it together in August and just hit the ground running from there.
I want to bring something up because we're in a different time, and it forces you to be even more creative.
Yeah.
Your team's successful. Yeah, you have a good program that you inherited.
Yeah.
With that being said, when you have a good team like that and you have good players, we're in the new landscape where if those kids are all conference or player of the years, those D1s are coming to get them now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say this, you know, you recruit the players to help them grow in every single aspect of their game. There will be times those situations happen. And because you have those players that come in, some of them want to be pros, some of them want to be doctors. Well, the pros, you have to keep in the back of your mind, if you do your job the right way, there probably will be opportunities, right? But at the same time, I don't believe in holding the kid back. And if they have the opportunity to do that, well, we have to do what's best for them. But again, it opens up the next opportunity for the next kid as you sell your program. Hey, this is what this kid was able to do. And I'm not trying to individualize the kid, but at the same time, we can both win-win in the situation.
Man, you just said something, and I want to really touch on that, because I want parents to hear this and I want players to hear this as well. You can go professional from D2, and I hear it so many times when parents are talking to me. Well, you know, you have to play D1 to go professional. I was like, no, you have to have a resume to play professional. It's not about, oh, you went to this Power 4 school. If you didn't play, how are you going to be seen? Or your resume is not going to be that good. That person that is all conference or D2 player of the year, they're going to have opportunities. And let me walk that back just a second. That D2 player of the year is basically a Power 4 kid. Let me just put that out there. It's the kids that are in these really good D2 conferences. And I want to be careful when I say that, because it's not just the really good ones, but the really good D2 conferences are basically low D1s. And I don't care if people can get mad at me for saying that. It's the truth. Yeah. And people need to understand, like, if you're at a really good D2, those teams can beat low D1s. I said it. It is what it is.
It is very true. I will say this, because before me taking over the head coaching job, I was at the University of Evansville, and I actually played in the Missouri Valley. The kid, and I'm going to mention her name, was Paige Robinson. That's in our conference. Before I got here, she was at Drury University, which is in the same conference. She was the player of the year, went to Illinois State University, was player of the year, and was drafted by the Dallas Wings. So it's been proven, the fact that as long as you get that opportunity, if the coach believes in you and you're being on the floor and you produce and you help your team win while growing individually, anything is possible.
So let me ask you this, because even though it's premature, that's going to be part of your package of what you just said right there. Like, I know Drury's probably selling that like a Benz right now. You know, that she went here and then she moved up to a D1 and now she's playing pro. And they're probably saying, we can do this all again with the next hot prospect that thinks about coming to Drury. And, you know, I'm sure that's going to be your thinking as well, because, you know, when you start thinking some of these D1s, especially like Evansville or Indiana State or Youngstown State or Mac schools or Missouri Valley schools, all of those schools that are in the Midwest that are really good programs, they're going to be eyeing what you're doing, and we're at that page, at that point now to where, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. Big fish eats little fish a lot of time. and so, like you said, those Paige Robinsons, that person that's going to be on Lewis University that is all conference, like her phone is going to ring.
Yes.
And like you said, like, yes, you have the blessings. If it's a better opportunity, hey, I look at this like it's a gift and a curse almost. When I say a gift and a curse, it means you're doing something right.
Yes.
I broadcast games, D2 games. So I broadcast games in the Peach Belt Conference, which is a really good conference, really good D2 conference. And yearly, I watch those kids that are all conference. As soon as I see that list come out, I'm like, oh, she's gone. She's gone. She's gone. Oh, player of the year, she's definitely gone. But now it's to the point, it's not just the all conference kids. Yes. The kids that aren't all conference are going D1 now. And I'm like, oh man, what is going on here? I was like, I think that's a testament to the conference, sure, but it also lets you know how much basketball is evolving on the women's side. I mean, it's getting really good. Like, yeah, you're getting these JUCO kids. You're having them, sometimes they go JUCO, they come to you for a year. Now they're going, like you said, in the Paige Robinson situation. And it's a win for the kid in those situations. I just don't like when, how can I say this? I don't like where those kids sometimes are sold the dream.
Yeah.
And when I say sold the dream, I want to be clear when I say this. Don't leave Lewis University or any other school in your conference to be the last player on that D1 bench. And again, we're talking resume.
Yes.
So if we're talking resume, it's always, as I like to say, fit.
Fit. Yes.
And if it's fit, then and listen, I get this as well, and I know it's a slippery slope.
Yes.
When they start talking money, I get it. Who am I to judge on that? Money will distort a lot of views, a whole lot of views. But sometimes you have to play the long game too. And playing the long game may say, hey, my best fit is Lewis University, because if I come here and kill it again, I may get that call from overseas. I may get that call from Canada, Mexico, what have you, because I was a two-time all-conference player, or, I led the league in rebounds, because I don't want to harp on just points. His points are great.
Yes.
But I also want to say, I led the league in assists,
yes.
led the league in steals, or my assist to turnover ratio was off the charts. Yes. That lets me know I'm a great floor general. And it's not just me watching this. I get to look at those numbers for a living, because I see them pregame all the time. I'm like, oh, she's really good. Okay. And I get to watch film before we get to talk about players, but it's not just me watching. There's a bunch of other people watching as well.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on fit versus moving on?
I would say fit and moving on. I would say what more of fit is when you recruit them there. I'll just say, like, when you're recruiting a kid, when they want to be a pro, I call it training grounds. Every day is a training ground. When you talk about, you don't know what that could look like. You can either stay at the same level, or do you continue to develop and elevate? And within that development, it allows you to see where you're at. And if you continue to develop, sometimes you may lose kids, or you stay at the same place, be where your feet are, and you elevate to where now you become a pro. And I think for that, it's all more about fit, and being where your feet are will allow you to continue to advance in your career.
Let me ask this, and I want people to hear this. Why Lewis University over all those other really good D2s in the Midwest, down south, East Coast, West Coast. Why Lewis?
Lewis University, as me as the leader of the program, we are going to build something that's bigger than basketball. It's building champions for life. And the mission is to pursue excellence in the classroom, in competition, in the community, and in their career. And so for me, it's about the holistic approach, growing them as young ladies to womanhood, but also being able, whether they're a pro or not, being prepared for life. Once they leave Lewis University, they are going to be able to step into the real world and hit the ground running. And that's what it's about.
I like that. I like that. How can people get in contact with you? Because I know there's going to be scores of JUCOs. There's going to be scores of high school coaches. How do you prefer to be contacted?
Absolutely. Just through social media, from Twitter, Instagram. It's Dodie Dunson, DODIEDUNSON, on all social media platforms. That's the way to connect with me, or they can hit me on my email is ddunson@lewis.edu.
Okay. Hey, man, I appreciate it. Man, you're awesome tonight, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And one thing I like to say, and I want to stress this as well, we were connected through a friend of ours. And I always like to say this, when your name is good, your name is good. And when people recommend you through another person in the business, you just said it yourself, as you move on in life. And I was actually talking to my son about this as well. When you have your name, and your name means a lot in this business, and people will vouch for you. I remember when we met, and one of the first things we both said, well, if this person recommended you, I trust him wholeheartedly. And we just hit it from there. And I always like to say that for you kids that are watching, your name means a lot, not only in business, but in life as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to thank you again for your time.
Oh, no, man. Thank you, man. I mean, you already know, I'm always a phone call away, and, we could talk more than just this 30 minutes, but I really want to thank you coming on. And, I can't wait to see you guys when I get up there in October for the JUCO Jamboree. So I want to, sneak up there and sneak through and see, what your program is looking like.
Absolutely. I'd love for you to come to campus and check it out.
Definitely. Hey, man, like I said, this won't be the last time you come on the show, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you again for your time.
Anytime. You have a good one, okay?
You too.
All right. Listen, Coach Dunson, I mean, I can't stress enough, like, what he's going to build there. I want people to understand he's probably going to do something very special there. So I wanted to be one of the first to lock in and use the platform to introduce him to the people, especially in the Southeast, that don't know about him. Yes, I have East Coast listeners, I have West Coast listeners, but I wanted to expand people that don't know about Lewis University past the Midwest. So that was important for me. And, good guy. And anytime you have a good guy and someone that knows what they're doing, I always want to bring them on and pick their brains, so to speak. That's going to do it for tonight. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This is one of those things where I'm just passionate about this. We had two really good guests tonight, and, it was no different from any other show. They knocked it out the park. But you guys, as you get ready for high school team camp, as you get ready for AAU in July, which is going to be big for a number of you guys, and it'll determine whether you get offers or not. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You keep working. Like Coach England said, there's options at every level. So you parents, I don't want you to stress over, oh, my baby didn't get an offer in July. And sometimes JUCO is the best route. And listen, you all need to understand, and it's not always JUCO D1, JUCO D2, or JUCO D3, because please believe Coach England is going to tell you, yeah, some of you all are not good enough to play for her as well. And it's no knock. That is no knock, which that means she has a really good program as well. But you people need to understand that, like Coach Dunson said, it's a fit. if you're not a fit, you're not going to be a fit for every team. And that's not an insult as well, which you're not being a fit. You need to find the place that best fits you and most feels like home, where you feel like you can succeed. That's going to do it for tonight. You guys, thank you so much. We're going to be back on Thursday again for another great show. I'm your host, David Jones. Good night.